What does it mean to be truly human? Saint Irenaeus has an amazing quote. He says, "The glory of God is man fully alive." So if we think about the fullness of our being and moving into what we're going to talk about today, the transforming union through a life of prayer, the soul is awakened to its true bridal intimacy with God, this fullness of being the bride and understanding the bridegroom is always with her. It's such an intimate place. And some of the quotes I want to share with you are two stanzas from the poem of the Spiritual Canticle as we begin. And I just want you to soak these words into your heart as we're talking about bridal intimacy with God. John says in stanza 22, "The bride has entered the sweet garden of her desire, and she rests in delight, laying her neck on the gentle arms of her beloved." And the next stanza that I'd like to quote for you is stanza 27, and that says, "There he gave me his breast, there he taught me a sweet and living knowledge, and I gave myself to him, keeping nothing back. There I promised to be his bride." These two stanzas are a beautiful portrayal of this deep intimacy of a union that has taken place in the soul. And what we want to do today is just take a look at the journey we've made over the last several weeks this Lent. We've talked a lot about deep prayer and the way to reach this transforming union with God. And today we talk about this gift of the end. This bridal intimacy is the end goal. This intimate union with God, who is the bridegroom. The great mystics of Carmel, especially John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila, have, quote, unquote, the secret sauce on this intimate prayer of transforming union. And God himself allowed them to reach that intimate height of mystical glory on earth so that they could write about it for all of us who would follow in their footsteps and desire that same intimacy. They do say it's rare that souls reach this mystical union. Nevertheless, if you follow what we've instructed you on these last several weeks and you stay committed and don't grow weary on the journey, there is hope that you and I can hold out for, that we will all make it to this place of transforming union, even here on earth, if we really dedicate our lives to following the will of God. And that will of God is that we let go of everything that's not him so we can be truly human. So I want to pose that question for you again. What does it mean to be truly human? In the journey of faith, the soul is more and more convinced of God. This faith takes on a new reality that allows us to let go of everything else that's not God. And we talked about the early parts of our journey. When we question our faith, we wonder if all the pleasures of heaven could possibly be better than the pleasures of earth. We cling to these pleasures of the earth. But gradually the soul understands that it's not made for the things of the earth, that it's made for the things of heaven. And as the journey of detachment continues, the soul begins to understand more of the divine intimate inflow and the beauty and the power of God. Now, once a person has tasted that beauty and power of God, they're not satisfied anymore with anything else that the world could offer. And if they go back to the worldly things, they're dissatisfied. There's a wrestling. And these are those processes of the dark night of the sense, and especially in the dark night of the soul. Understanding now nothing can satisfy other than God. And somehow the soul begins to understand that the world and everything of the world cannot satisfy the hunger that it experiences. And another stanza that I'd like to bring to your attention today is stanza 35 of the Spiritual Canticle. And here St. John of the Cross talks about that soul and its journey toward God and this intimacy because she's let go of everything else. And I want to put this before you today because I think many of you may be in this stage of wrestling. We kind of keep one foot in the world and one foot in a deeper spiritual life, and we wrestle back and forth. But it's so good. It's like, okay, but God's better. And there's moments where if we keep pressing into seeking his will and to live that perfectly, we become more and more aligned with that. And then we become more fully alive and we become more fully bride. And that is the end goal. I'm the bride. This is my bridegroom. I want intimate union with him, and it's worth it. It's worth it. All of this effort is worth it. And I've got my eyes fixed on the bridegroom and I'm chasing after him. St. John of the Cross talks about the soul and its journey toward God and this intimacy, because she's let go of everything else. Nothing else will satisfy her, and she set herself to mortify all of the passions and all of the senses, and has been purified in the memory, intellect, and will. And therefore she's created a deep space of solitude and silence for him alone. St. John of the Cross says, the bridegroom continues the explanation of his happiness over the blessing the bride has obtained through the solitude in which she formerly desired to live. This blessing is a stable peace and an unchanging good. When the soul has become established in the quietude of solitary love of her bridegroom, as has this one of whom we are speaking, she is settled in God, and God in her, with so much delight that she has no need of other masters or means to direct her to him. For now God is her guide and her light. He accomplishes in her what he promised through Hosea. I shall lead her into solitude and there speak to her heart. In this promise, he reveals that he communicates and unites himself to the soul in solitude. To speak to the heart is to satisfy the heart, which is dissatisfied with anything less than God. Thus the bridegroom continues. She lived in solitude, and now in solitude has built her nest, and in solitude he guides her, he alone, who also bears in solitude the wound of love. This wound of love we spoke about earlier in the very beginning of Lent, and Jesus himself we have seen pierced on the cross for this love and wound that he has for us. And so part of this intimacy is also, I think we hear the great mystics, we're talking a lot about St. Francis this Lent as well, this intimate poverty of spirit that has become so dependent on God and is so like Jesus that he's even pierced with that same wound. So mystical union is this intimacy with God, even in his woundedness and the wounding that he has in this mystical love. So I want you to understand then, to be that much like Jesus, that's what it means to be truly human. Right? Our humanity to become one with his humanity is what we're all striving for in that transforming union. So much intimacy and union that we're more and more alike, more and more like Jesus, the bridegroom himself. So I want you to see how one who's truly human to the degree that they begin to leave aside all that this world has and to live for heavenly glory. Heavenly things are what we encounter in this deep union with God in prayer. And we long for his union. We long for his vision. We long to be in this such intimate union that he alone is guiding us now. And this is what happens in that mystical marriage and transforming union. And once the life is so infused with God, a person just doesn't feel separated from God, and they feel very united in every movement of their being with the divine spouse. Experiences in lofty, high mystical prayer. But the greatest gift really is that Jesus and God, they just never seem to be separated from that person. There's no separation, no being apart from God anymore. And actually, it's not that God never was present, he's always present, but now the soul has this intimate reality that they're living in. They're breathing in that movement of togetherness with God. God's always been present, but now the soul has awakened to the presence and lives in the presence and is one with the presence of God so intimately, so deeply. This is truly mysticism and espousal to God himself. So today I want to leave you with a few questions, particularly, how much hope do I have to obtain this union? I'm remembering that St. Paul teaches us that hope does not disappoint, right? So the question is, how can I fix my hope on running to the beloved and seeking this type of intimate love and his love for me? And then, do I live in this hope of this deep, intimate union with God? And then also to ask, do I grow weary by the desires of the flesh, or do I grow weary by the world and all it has to offer? And can I fix my heart on what it means to be truly human? The fullness and the flourishing of becoming more and more Christ-like. And as we close out today, I just want to read this last stanza 27 again, which communicates this interior union that God has with the soul. And so he says, again, this is stanza 27, closing us out today. There he gave me his breast. There he taught me a sweet and living knowledge, and I gave myself to him, keeping nothing back. There I promised to be his bride. God bless you.